Today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers on the Varsity Podcast Network is brought to you by Varsity Search. Varsity Search builds great teams by connecting lawyers in Texas with career opportunities at small and boutique law firms. So if you're thinking of making a move or your law firm is looking to hire, please go to varsitysearch.com and book a time to visit right into my calendar. Varsity Search, building great teams. Hey everyone, Daniel here back with you on Lone Star Lawyers. Hope you had a good Labor Day weekend last weekend. It's been a couple weeks since we've been together, and so glad to be back and excited to hop into this episode. Before we get started, I want to let you know about a few of the opportunities that we're currently searching for. We have a lot of things going on in Dallas. We've got a commercial bankruptcy litigation position, a real estate transactional opportunity, a plaintiff's firm opportunity, an M&A opportunity, multiple commercial litigation and or construction litigation opportunities. A lot happening in Dallas. In Austin, we're looking for an insurance defense / commercial litigation attorney, as well as continuing to look on family law and special education. In Tarrant County and in Fort Worth, continuing to look for family law attorney, as well as a corporate and real estate attorney. In Houston, looking for insurance defense, as well as personal injury attorney, and then in San Antonio, a commercial bankruptcy litigation as well. So all over the state, looking for a variety of things. Actually, I should mention, I didn't get this down in the notes before we hopped in, but just became aware of another opportunity in East Texas that could be located remotely, involving trademark and patent and IP litigation. So if that's something of interest, then would love to hear from you on that or any of the positions that I mentioned before. All right, today we are in Bridgeport. Where's Bridgeport? It's about 50 miles northwest of Fort Worth, and that's where our guest is, Andrew Tuegel. Andrew is a partner with Simpson, and Tuegel, where he tries cases involving mass torts, product liability, personal injury, as well as business disputes. Andrew has been named a Texas Rising Star each of the past 6 years and has been recognized as a National Trial Lawyers 40 Under 40 the past 2 years, as well as a best lawyer in America. He is also our resident expert in the best show on TV right now, Ted Lasso, and we're going to get into that a little bit at the end of this episode after we have our normal conversations. I couldn't let him go without talking about a little Ted Lasso. So hopefully you'll join us for that as well. And with that, let's hop into our conversation with Andrew Tuegel on today's Monday Mentors episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Andrew Tuegel joins us right now. Andrew, thanks for taking time to come on the show with us.
Hey, thanks, Daniel. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with you. As we get started here, why don't you tell us a little bit about your practice and your firm and what all you do?
Sure. So my practice is located in Wise County, Texas. So that's a county just northwest of Fort Worth. Decatur is the county seat. We have an office in Decatur, but our main office is in Bridgeport, which is about, 10 miles or so to the west of Decatur. So we're a small firm. It's called Simpson, and Tuegel. There's 3 lawyers. There's a Simpson, there's another Simpson, and then there's me, the Tuegel. Right. We are mostly a plaintiff's personal injury, wrongful death, a little bit of mass tort practice. We have, I would say probably 95% of our work is contingent fee. Mm-hmm. And then the other 5% are some local businesses that we represent on an hourly basis and just kind of whatever comes up for them. And we've represented them for years and years and years. So that's where we are, and that's what we do.
Gotcha. So, and I appreciate you describing the location and everything. When it comes to the clients that you tend to work with, I know you mentioned local small businesses that you do stuff with on kind of the smaller part of your practice, but in terms of the plaintiff side, what does the geographical footprint look like from that standpoint? Are there people coming from all over the metroplex to you all for different things, or is it limited to kind of the smaller rural area and places where you're at physically?
Sure. So we certainly, I would say the majority of our personal injury clients come from Wise County, Fort Worth, kind of the western side of the metroplex. There are, of course, exceptions to that, but that's definitely the base that we draw from.
Hmm.
And then we do have a couple of mass tort dockets coming or going on. And so our mass tort clients are literally from across the country. We've got clients in California, we've got clients in Florida, we've got clients up in Montana, just literally all over the place. So it's really interesting, and one of the things that I really like about being on the plaintiff side of the docket is I have clients everywhere. I've tried cases everywhere.
Yeah.
And even our clients that we pull from, Wise County, Bridgeport, Decatur, maybe Fort Worth, that doesn't necessarily mean their cases are filed in Wise County.
Yeah. Sure.
So we've got a big one going down in Fort Bend County right now that we're going to trial on in a couple of weeks.
Hmm.
And so that's southwest of Houston.
Right.
I've tried cases in Maine. I've tried a case in North Carolina. I've tried a case in Utah. I've tried a case in Las Vegas. So it's been a great experience to get to go all over the country and do some really cool work.
So let me ask you about that. What would you say? And I'm sure there are many, but what tops the list in terms of when you're going to file and then ultimately try a case in a particular jurisdiction, wherever that might be? What's the biggest and most important distinction or difference that you're wanting to know about that jurisdiction versus maybe others that you've practiced in before? Like if you're going to go over to some place you've never been, what are kind of the couple of things that you want to make sure you know right off the bat that you understand in terms of what might be different from what you're used to in some of the Texas courts or even, right where you are?
Sure. So a couple big things, and these are all things that I have learned through experience and not always good experience.
Right.
Um, so one clearly is the substantive law.
Yeah.
Um, things are not the same across the country as they are in Texas. Sometimes that's a really good thing. Sometimes that's a really bad thing.
Yeah.
Um, to my knowledge, there are two jurisdictions in the United States that still have a 1% comparative fault bar to recovery, and those are Virginia and North Carolina.
Okay.
We did not, well, I got involved in a case. It was already going on before I started in it. But once I got into it, we realized that there was a 1% contributory negligence bar to recovery in North Carolina, and our client was probably more than 1% negligent.
Right.
Um, and so that made for a difficult resolution. And had we known that on the front end, maybe we would have approached the case differently. Maybe we wouldn't have taken the case. I mean,
Yeah.
it would have made a difference. So
Yeah.
substantive law is definitely key.
Sure.
Um, the second thing, and this is kind of a weird thing to talk about because it's more on sort of the business side of the law.
Mm-hmm. That's
But
fine.
a lot of jurisdictions have different rules on how your contingency fee can be structured, other than different than the way we do it in Texas.
Right.
In Texas, generally, there's no cap on contingent fee other than sort of the general legal ethical guidelines of it can't be unconscionable and things like that.
Right.
And not that we've ever even attempted to charge a huge unconscionable fee, but in
Right.
Texas you have pretty wide latitude, and I know what the market is, and I know, hey, I can set this fee, and in almost all circumstances the court's going to look at it and say that's great, go on.
Right.
Some jurisdictions have, I mean, I'm thinking of California and New Jersey. They have some pretty specific um, statutes spelling out, hey, either in this type of case or in contingency fee contracts in general, you can only charge a 35% fee on the first $200,000 of recovery, and then it's a 33%, and so on and so
Got
forth.
it.
And that makes a difference in evaluating a case
Right.
of, hey, is this going to be worth it for me to get involved and for me to travel across the country? And maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I want to know that going into it. And so those are a couple of things: the substantive law, and then sort of the fee part of the law that I want to know if I'm looking at a case in Maine or in Washington State or something like that.
Right. That makes sense. What is happening just in the personal injury plaintiff side bar right now? Like, are there some hot topics or some things that are at the at top of mind when you think about changes that are maybe coming or are being implemented? We just had a legislative session. I don't know if there's stuff there or anything that you're just seeing in general from the types of clients and cases that are coming through the door.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, the big thing on everybody's mind, I think, regardless of your practice, is COVID and how COVID has affected your practice. And so, I mean, that's sort of a hot topic in and of itself.
Right.
As far as changes in the law, I mean, if you're a plaintiff's lawyer in Texas, you are nervous every time the legislature is in session. Because they are always looking to tweak something, generally to our detriment and to our clients' detriment, most importantly. And so we've seen that in the most recent legislative session. There was a big push on, it was termed House Bill 19. It was tort reform in the trucking wreck context. And those reforms go into effect September 1st. So I was actually just talking to Michelle, my wife, last night about a trucking case that she was looking at. And I was like, well, hey, you need to get it on file in the next couple of weeks. And she's like, why? Well, new trucking rules, September 1st. And we don't want to be under the new rules. We want to be under the old. And so that's something to always be aware of. But, there have been some good developments for our clients. There's been a Texas Supreme Court case recently that has allowed people pursuing underinsured motorist claims to get attorney's fees in addition to their recovery, and that makes a difference. And so, I mean, there's always something changing, whether it's legislatively, whether it's through the Texas Supreme Court or a case coming down. But I'm very glad that our legislature only meets once every 2 years. I'm very glad they have very strict limitations on their time period to meet, and I'm ecstatic when they adjourn for the session.
Yeah, right. Well, and I did want to clarify one thing too, because and not having now practiced in a long time, that when a law changes like that and has an effective date of September 1, as long as you are able to get the case filed prior to that date, then you are operating under the former rules, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So this year you will see a bunch of trucking cases filed, August 31st.
August 31st, a lot of trucking cases. Yeah. That makes sense. You mentioned COVID. What's going on there? It's funny, as we've done this show over the course of the last year and a half, I was looking back over notes and looking at how we talked about it over the time. And really, as we were kind of talking last, like February, March, April, feeling good about things, vaccines were rolling out and thinking we'd have a summer where it puts it behind us. And we maybe stopped talking about it by now and by the start of school. And then, there's a shift and things change. And now we have to talk about it more again, and which is not ideal, but, I think we'd be, missing out not to. So what are you seeing right now? You mentioned you've had some cases and trials coming up and stuff. What's kind of the court situation and how that's going? And tell us a little about that.
Yeah, so I've got a case set into September. We're a preferential setting, so theoretically we're going to go. Of course, the big question in that is, what is COVID going to be doing? And so I was actually down in Fort Bend County last week on that case for a summary judgment hearing. My first in-person hearing since, probably February 2020.
Okay. All right.
And so, we're all masked. There's still plexiglass up at the bench. And so we start in on this hearing, and, we're going maybe about an hour, and judge is very engaged and listening and asking questions. And one of his court staff walks up and hands him a note, and his face kind of falls, and he immediately leaves the bench and says, I'll be back. Comes back 5 minutes later. He's now wearing not one, but two masks. And he pretty quickly shuts down the hearing. He denies all of the defendant's motions for summary judgment, which was great, which is what we wanted.
Right.
But then on the way out the door, he doesn't order everybody, but he highly suggests everybody get tested. So clearly there had been some sort of diagnosis, exposure in the middle of the hearing.
In the middle of the building, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. So, we are still scheduled to go to trial at the end of September in that court in front of that judge, and I hope we do. Right. Because nothing moves our cases like firm trial dates. And if we don't have a trial date, chances are your plaintiff's case is not going to resolve because there's not a lot of motivation for the other side to pay their insurance money or pay, money the company has or whatever, when they know, hey, you can't come get it from me yet.
Right.
And so that makes it hard. I think everybody had a difficult time in the year of COVID, especially when it was really bad in 2020 into kind of the winter, spring of 2021 before things started opening up. But it was especially hard on the plaintiff side because, we're a contingency fee business. We don't get paid until something resolves, and there's no motivation to resolve anything.
Right. No, that's super challenging. Like you said, for you all as contingency fee lawyers, and then especially your clients who are sitting there hurting and can't get the help they need. So, hopefully, like you said, those cases can start moving and get at least trial dates that are set, so you can either settle or get them tried. And stop kicking them down the road. And then it's also hard too in these smaller counties where I know the criminal stuff has to take precedent as well over any civil things, and so that makes it hard. Absolutely. I'm sure for you all as well.
Yeah, and our trial in September, we are the first civil case that is set.
Right.
If somebody has been sitting in jail waiting for their trial date for a year and a half, they obviously need to go in front of us.
Yeah. Right.
There are some constitutional issues at stake, and as much as I want to get my case to trial, and as much as my client wants their case to go to trial, and they deserve their day in court, we understand that those criminal implications come first. So
absolutely, yeah, no, for sure. All right, so switching gears here, looking back on your early years of practice, what's something that you learned or picked up at that point when you were first getting started? A piece of advice or something that you learned that still is with you, still something you hang on to and use today?
I think it was advice that I got in law school at Baylor in practice court, and it really is the best advice is as an associate, you need to make yourself indispensable. You need to, burrow your way in. That's probably not the right term, but find something that you can contribute to the team, and you're the best at contributing to the team. So that way they can't do without you. Whether that's in the litigation context, taking depositions, preparing for depositions, doc review, whatever it is, you got to find what you can contribute to the team and make yourself a necessary part of the team. And that's going to give you opportunities and chances to both grow personally as a lawyer and grow your career, is because you're now, being put into the game, as it were, not left at home, not left on the bench.
How did that manifest for you? Like, it was when you first got in practice, was there a need that you saw that you could fill, or was there a area that the firm needed help with that you jumped in on? When you think about how or over the time you've put that into practice? What's maybe an example of a place where that where you kind of pursued that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to timeline this. So probably into the first year, into my second year of being an associate, I worked at a firm in Waco, and there was a partner in the firm, a lawyer named Matt Morrison, who had a series of uh, opioid overdose cases that he tried throughout the country. And so right when I started, it was actually an arbitration in California, and there was just a lot of briefing that went into those cases.
Mm-hmm.
They were very expert heavy. They were very sort of legal specific heavy. And so in the lead up to trial, there were always going to be motions to strike experts. There would be clarifying motions on sort of what the standard of care was and how this law is going to apply. And it was in jurisdictions all over the country.
Yeah.
So pretty quickly, I saw that I had, and they apparently saw it too, a pretty good knack for briefing on those issues. I
Mm-hmm.
could digest, depots or depositions that I hadn't been a part of, but I could, distill them down really quickly to find out what was key to keep our expert or to strike their expert or to get us past summary judgment, and could digest the law in these different jurisdictions pretty quickly as well. And so it got super briefing heavy for me really quickly,
Hmm.
but that also plugged me into some trials really quickly. So in the spring of 2012, Matt and I went out to Salt Lake City, Utah, actually the county north of Salt Lake City, Utah, and we tried a case for 2 weeks and won a $3.3 million verdict. And then we had 2 weeks off, and then we went to Bangor, Maine for 2 weeks to try another opioid overdose case,
Mm-hmm.
where we had a almost $2 million verdict that we won.
Wow.
And then we sort of took the summer off, at least from trial. Then we went out to North Carolina and we tried a case, which we didn't win, but we learned a lot from.
Yeah.
And so, but all of that was because I could get in there and brief like crazy.
Yeah.
And that also gave me the opportunity to examine witnesses in trial, do a lot of the pretrial procedure and argument, because it was just so massive, they needed help.
Yeah.
And hey, if I'm going to be out here, working every night trying to get this trial issue briefed up so we can take it up with the judge in the morning, sure, yeah, let's give you a witness you can examine.
Yeah.
And so that was how I made myself indispensable in sort of the start of my career was, man, I can show up, I can work hard, and I can kind of help us fight on these issues that, change from jurisdiction to jurisdiction.
Yeah. I think that's such a great story because, I think a lot of times to make yourself indispensable as a young lawyer, you probably are going to have to maybe do things that aren't like at the top of your list of the thing that you would want to do.
Sure.
And so being willing to do those things to find your way and find a place in the firm, in your case, led to being able to do a lot of the things that you would have wanted to do, take witnesses and do and go try cases and all of that. Not that you didn't want to do the briefing necessarily, but a lot of times I think for most people, that's going to be the case. It's not going to be like your top choice, because there's a reason why, like, no one else wants to do it in the firm. And so there's an opportunity for you to get in there and do it. That is the way to get in the door and to make yourself valued right away when you don't have 10, 20, 30 years of experience yet, is to be able to do those things that people don't want. And then sometimes, maybe not all the time, I think you caught, I think, a pretty good break to be able to do those things. So it's not going to be the case for everyone right away, but you don't give yourself the chance for that if you don't get in and do those things that need being done right away. So,
well, and it also shows, and it seems sort of cliche to say it, but if you do well with a little thing, you're going to get more opportunities.
Right.
And even if it's a little thing that you don't really like, or you don't really see yourself doing, or is not the most glamorous thing, it's a way to prove yourself.
Right.
And so you got to get in there and you got to attack it with gusto, because you're never going to get those other opportunities if you don't do those little things well. Again, even if they're not the most exciting or the most sort of, hey, I'm standing up in court and I'm the lead on this. You, I know very few lawyers who have gotten to be the lead on stuff like that by just day one standing up and saying, hey, I'm the person, call on me. I'm the one who's going to do it. It's, hey, yeah, I was given this assignment and I worked my tail off to, make sure I did it the best way that I could.
Yeah.
And then that led to another chance, and that led to another chance. And you just got to treat all of those opportunities as, even if it's, something that sucks. I mean, for that Utah case, I remember I worked every day, at least some. I mean, it wasn't like, 8 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday, but I mean, every Saturday, every Sunday for 6 weeks leading up to trial, I was at the office working on something. And some of that was because it was really my first trial to be involved in.
Right.
And it just takes longer. You don't know what you don't know. So, there's a lot of stuff you work on that didn't end up being important or even making a difference, but you got to do it just so you're ready.
Sure.
But it was my opportunity, and this was how I was going to get in the courtroom. And, if I knew the law on the charge in Utah better than anybody else in my firm, I was going to get the opportunity at that charge conference to stand up and argue, hey, judge, we need this instruction, or no, this is wrong. And everybody's going to look at me, and that's my chance to kind of grab the baton and run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I think sometimes we forget that, there's opportunities for young lawyers to become more knowledgeable about an issue than anyone else in their firm, depending on the situation. If it's a new jurisdiction that you, as a firm, haven't been to before, like you were saying, hey, you can become the expert on 1% comparative fault that you don't ever deal with in Texas, and all of a sudden here it is in front of you. Well, in 2 nights, you can become the firm's best knowledge source for that issue. Absolutely. Right? Or anything. If there's a new case that just got handed down, and so the law has changed, you can become the expert in that. There's all these ways where even if you haven't practiced for decades, you can become the most knowledgeable person in the firm if you're willing to dive in on stuff that's new, stuff that is just different jurisdiction, different type of case than maybe the firm's handled before, or something. You can all of a sudden become the most knowledgeable. So I think there's great opportunity there if young lawyers are willing to kind of see those opportunities and jump out and grab them.
Yep, for sure.
What's maybe something that you learned more recently that you wish someone maybe would have taken you aside and explained to you early on, but maybe you've picked up in the last couple of years or something like that?
Yeah, so something that, I don't know, kind of really came into focus. I practiced in Waco with that firm for a little over 8 years, and then we moved up to Dallas. But I've always been on the plaintiff's personal injury side and always been in private practice. So it kind of came into focus towards the tail end of my time in Waco, and then now having my own law firm, Michelle having her own law firm, really is something that I wish I would have known day one. And really is the thing that I come back to in the practice of law more than anything else. And I'll give a brief caveat of this applies, I think, to any private practice of law, not your prosecutors, not your public defenders, more than likely. But if we're in the private practice, and my the senior partner at the firm in Waco, a fantastic lawyer named Steve Harrison, who's been doing it in Waco better and longer than just about anybody, described it this way. And he's a bit of sort of a gentleman rancher. and a country guy.
Yes.
And so he described it as this: in every law firm, you need some combination of chicken getters and chicken pluckers. And I will boil it down to say every lawyer needs to figure out where they are in the chicken getter to chicken plucker scale. And so let's break that down for a second.
Yeah.
Chicken getter. A law firm needs business to survive.
Right.
Whether that's personal injury cases on my side of the docket, whether that's insurance clients on the other side of the docket, whether it's people coming in to get wills done. Every private practice, for-profit law firm needs business. And there are some people who are almost exclusively chicken getters in the practice of law. They're great at networking. They're great at sitting down in front of a client, whether it's somebody who's injured or whether it's sitting down in a boardroom in a big company and convincing that client, hey, you need to let us do your legal work. And so, there are some people who are almost, 100% chicken getters.
Right.
And then there are people who are almost 100% chicken pluckers.
Right.
They don't deal a lot with clients, but they can push cases. They can bill hours. They can turn over cases. They can, churn out wills, whatever the setup is. They are chicken pluckers. They can turn over business.
Right.
And then some people are a combination of both. But you got to figure out kind of where you are on the scale, and you got to figure out how you can contribute to your law firm. Is it the chicken getter category? Is it the chicken plucker category? Is it a little of both? And you got to find where you fit within a law firm. And some firms and some employers don't necessarily look at it that way or understand the value of, say, solely chicken pluckers or solely chicken getters.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a firm believer in it takes all types to practice law. And so you got to play to your strengths and kind of minimize your weaknesses. So figure out where you are on the chicken getter to chicken plucker scale, and kind of plug that into either your current firm or a firm you're trying to get on with, and say, hey, this is what I'm really good at. I'm really good at bringing business. Here's my book. I can bring this over with me. Or, hey, I can bill hours like a machine. Look at how many hours I've billed. I'm great at it. I can do it. Or if you're on the contingency fee side, because we don't care at all about billing hours.
Right.
I don't care if you spend an hour on a project or 100 hours on a project. If you give me a winning product, that's what I care about.
Right.
In fact, if you can give me a winning product in an hour, I would rather you spend an hour on it than 100 hours on it.
Yeah.
So the chicken plucking on our side looks a little different, but it's, can you turn over cases?
Yeah.
Can you get them tried? Can you get them resolved? Can you, bring money in? So that's the thing that I wish I would have understood earlier in the practice of law, because it's very sort of the business of law driven.
Yeah.
But we're a business.
Absolutely. Well, and let me ask you just one, there's so much there. It's so good. And I wish we could spend another 30 minutes just talking about what you just discussed. Maybe I'll have to have Steve on to talk more about it and see where he comes from with all that. So within the plaintiff side of the bar and on the chicken getter side. So let's just focus real quick on that. Because, I think a lot of times you think about, on the plaintiff side that a lot of the business comes by way of more traditional advertising and marketing, like a lot of other consumers and products and industries, as opposed to other types of law practice that's maybe more referral generated or sort of soft selling stuff, not on TV or radio or ads, billboards, whatever. How do you see the split within the plaintiff side business development between kind of traditional referral, hey, my neighbor said you really helped them with this, can you help me with that? Versus someone just sees an ad online or in the, on the radio or something and calls in and all of a sudden there's a client kind of from that. Like what does that breakout look like? And does it matter? Is it important?
Yeah, I would say it's hard to describe I don't know that I could sort of put numbers to it of, hey, X amount of plaintiff's business comes from this source.
Right.
I'm sure there are firms who could do it. But I will say this. I think there's certainly a generational shift that we're seeing,
Mm-hmm.
as the baby boomers are becoming older and older, and a less significant percentage-wise piece of the population. And now you've got Gen Xers or millennials or even Gen Zers who are starting to become potential clients, the people we're trying to reach as contingency fee personal injury lawyers. And so that makes a difference. I think the more serious a case is, a lot of times the more relational
Yes.
it's going to be.
Right.
It's fine to, hey, I was in a car wreck. My neck hurt. I went to the chiropractor for 6 weeks. And I still have some neck pain, but I'm more or less okay. It's fine to get on the internet most of the time and say, personal injury lawyer, and, somebody with a hammer or a strong arm or whatever is going to pop up first in the Google results.
Right.
And, they're going to sign with them, and it'll be fine. You'll get your meds paid for. You may get a little extra. You'll get your car taken care of.
Yeah.
And there's not too terribly much if you had gone to the absolute best lawyer in the world versus the absolute worst lawyer. Would there be a difference? Sure. Is it going to be a difference between, a couple $1,000s versus millions and millions of dollars on your case? No, it's not.
Right.
But the big cases, the wrongful death, the life-changing injury cases,
Yeah.
People are going to, most of the time, find their lawyer relationally on that.
Yeah.
Whether it's a lawyer they know from their community, somebody they go to church with, somebody that, they see in the school drop-off line, something like that. Whether it's a friend of theirs who has either used a lawyer or maybe worked for a lawyer, or, hey, I see that you're friends with Andrew and tell me about that, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a little bit of inside baseball and kind of pulling the curtain back a little bit, but some of the best personal injury lawyers that are practicing in Dallas, in Texas, across the country, most of their business comes from referrals from other lawyers.
Yeah. I was going to ask
they're
that.
not
So,
on.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not on the airwaves. There's not a billboard. They're not talking in a gruff voice, carrying a sledgehammer on a TV commercial. You may not know who they are, but they can be chicken pluckers, and they can get you more meat off that chicken than anybody else can.
Right.
And so those lawyers who are on the billboard or are on TV, kind of the dirty little secret is they're signing up a bunch of cases, and they may work some of them, but when they get a really big one, they're going to the cream of the crop, the best of the business who aren't advertising, because they know, hey, if I go hire lawyer X, she's the absolute best trucking lawyer there is.
Yeah.
And just by her being involved in the case, it's going to make it worth 10 times what I could get.
Right.
Or I'm going to go hire lawyer Y because he is the best industrial explosion lawyer there is. And he's tried a bunch of them. And as soon as he shows up in a case, big oil company is going to realize, hey, this is serious business.
Right. Yeah.
And so it goes back to, it takes all types.
Yeah.
And on the plaintiff's business, it's driven all sorts of ways. Does advertising make a difference? Yes. Does being the biggest badass on the block make a difference? It does.
Yeah.
And so everybody has a different business model, and you try to make it work for you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. All right. Last question before we do the important work of some Ted Lasso commentary.
Yeah, that's really why I'm here.
All right. People have been hanging on, waiting for that. So last one. When you're hiring lawyers, when you're in the process of looking at hiring young associates and going through that process, what's maybe one or two things that you think people need to know, lawyers need to know about preparing for that process or presenting themselves in the best possible way to get an interview and ultimately get hired?
Yeah. I would say, one, be honest about what your experience is, the good, the bad, and the ugly of it. Because I've been doing this business long enough to know, when somebody's telling the truth on that and when they're not. And yeah, have you done this before? And it's okay if you haven't. I just need to know where you are, honestly,
right?
Because I run a small shop. I don't have the time, the money, the energy to carry somebody who can't do the job.
Right.
And so it's okay if you haven't done the job before, because I can teach you if you're willing to learn and you're willing to put in the work. But I need to know where you are, honestly, so I know, hey, if I turn this over to associate, they can run with the ball. Or, hey, they haven't ever done this before, so if I turn this over to an associate, they're going to need some more input from me to get the job done. And that's fine a lot of the time. I'm not looking for, hey, you are me. I'm looking for somebody who can help the team. And so I've got to know where you are, honestly, so that way I can plug you in to help the team the best.
Yeah.
And so that I think is the biggest thing. And then the other thing is just willingness. You got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to work, especially on the plaintiff side, like I am. We are a results-oriented business.
Right.
I've got some dear friends. I've got, relatives who are, big firm lawyers or, hourly lawyers. And what goes into a successful, year for the firm or whatever is hours billed. You don't have to necessarily win a case. You don't have to, you probably want to win because it helps you get more business. But if you lose, it's not that big of a deal. We want to keep that business coming in and we want to be good servants of our clients. And that's that business model.
Yeah.
Our business model, we got to win. We don't get paid. Good things don't happen for our client unless we win. And so I need to know that somebody who's coming on my team has the willingness to do what it takes to win. And of course, that's within the bounds of ethics. And, we are not win at all costs, but we are win however we can within the bounds of what is, good, right, ethical. We want to be good lawyers, but we want to be creative lawyers, and we want to be hardworking lawyers, and we want to, make sure we're giving our all for our clients. And so sometimes that looks a little different on the plaintiff side. I don't really care how many hours your butt's in the chair in the office. That's not a metric that makes a difference.
Yeah.
Now I care if you're getting your stuff done.
Right.
And are you putting a winning product out?
Right.
And if you're not, then maybe I'm going to look at, hey, how many hours are you in the office? Are you doing the work like you need to? But man, if you can do the work, if you can help us win, if you can kick ass and, you're leaving at 4:30 because you want to go to a soccer game with your kid or something like that, I don't care. That's fine.
Right.
We got to win though.
Yeah.
That's what we care about.
Right. Yeah. The other pieces, the hours and the time in the office, all that are potential symptoms or causes of the work product not being good enough to win. And so if you're winning, then those things are fine. Like they're not problems. So
exactly.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Well, cool. All right. So I mentioned before and in the intro that we were going to have a quick commentary on Ted Lasso because I think Adrian and I share a probably outsized affinity, potentially unhealthy, with Ted Lasso.
Absolutely.
So first of all, when did you first become aware of the show? Did you know about it when it first came out? Tell me a little bit about your introduction to it.
Yeah, so I am a soccer fan. I am specifically a huge fan of the English Premiership team, Liverpool.
Okay.
Have been since college. Somebody asked me, I don't know, we were at a party or sitting around at dinner having the conversation, like, rank your sports teams as far as like, which one do you care most about? And number one for me before Baylor, before the Texas Rangers, before anything is Liverpool.
Yeah.
And so in 2012 or 2013, when Jason Sudeikis did the original Ted Lasso commercials for the Premier League coming to NBC, I saw them because I watch a lot of soccer.
Yeah.
So I was aware of it then. And so then when it popped on Apple TV, I was aware of the commercials, thought, oh, hey, I probably should watch that at some point because the commercials were funny.
Yeah.
But this is kind of weird. I mean, I love soccer. I love comedies. And, I'm casually interested in this. I don't know that I'm going to convince Michelle, who, is indifferent about soccer and
Right.
generally doesn't like TV comedy. She'd much rather watch a drama.
Yep.
I don't know that I'm going to convince her to watch this. So I'm not really going to press the issue. And maybe, when she's out of town or, some weekend when she's doing something, I can sit down and watch these.
Yeah.
It'll be no big deal. And so it had been out. We were bored one Friday night. We were having the endless discussion of scrolling through Netflix of, hey, is there anything to watch? What have you heard's good? And I said, hey, let's try Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to be any good. It might be a little funny, but let's try it. We don't have anything else to watch. Instead of just scrolling endlessly, let's try it. Okay, great. We watched 4 episodes the first night.
Yeah.
And then the next night we watched 4 more episodes, and that was all that was out at that point. So we got in through episode 8 and then had to wait for 9 and 10. So I think we're fairly early adopters of it.
I'd say so. Because that was which year?
That was so last fall.
That was last fall.
Because it premiered, I think, in late July. So this is probably, end of September, beginning of October where we started watching it.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to go back now and find on YouTube, I guess, those commercials because I didn't even know about those. I have not seen those at all. The 2012-13 commercials you're talking about, I had no idea there was something that far back. So that I'm going to have to do.
And so it's just Ted, and he's like an angrier Ted. So it's a little weird. Not Led Tasso, but it's just a different Ted. And then Coach Beard is in him as well. So
man, and I have a little thing about Brendan Hunt too, Coach Beard, but I'll mention it in a second. So I think similar. We may have seen some of the. We did not have Apple TV when it first came out. I don't think is what happened. So like somewhere, I think for Christmas maybe. One of the things that my wife Adrian had asked for was like the Apple One subscription thing or whatever that has sort of the watch stuff, all the other media stuff that comes with it. And so that's right. So somewhere around the first year is when we first got access to the Apple stuff. And even then, I don't think we jumped right into it. It was later this spring when we first started watching. But similar to what it sounds like happened with you guys, I think by then, we had all 10 episodes of the first season or how many there were first season.
Right.
And I think in 2 nights pretty much went through the first 2. And I will say too, it's the first show that I can remember in a long time, maybe ever. Cause I mean, obviously not having kind of this format of TV viewing for as long as we've had like Netflix, that stuff, the ability to do this. But like, I mean, when we watched it the first season, like 2 weeks later, Adrian's like, I think we should watch Ted Lasso again. And that's when I knew like we had something different happening here. Cause like there are definitely shows that we rewatch. Like, I mean, we're about every 3-4 years with like The West Wing or with Friday Night Lights, or I mean, there's others like that. But to watch something through and then turn right around and watch it through a second time, like within like a week, I mean, I was like, and two other things happened. One was, I'm curious if you do this, like, this was Hamilton's fault, by the way. I'm blaming Hamilton for this one. I couldn't watch Hamilton without the subtitles. I couldn't keep up. I just couldn't. I couldn't keep up with it. And so when we started watching Ted Lasso, like, I think it was in about episode 2 or 3, I was like, I think I want to turn the captions on because I think I'm missing stuff from the accents and things. And so we don't do it anymore for the first season because I know it enough now. But like, I would watch through with the captions just to make sure. And there were so many things that I missed the first time around. Like, I mean, Into Touch, $5. Like, I didn't catch that joke in the first time through. I caught it in the second time through, and stuff like that. It's just, there's so many things that there's jokes all throughout it that are tough to catch. So,
well, and it's so layered. Like, there's the joke, and then there's 4 jokes that come in immediate succession right after it. Yep. And you're still laughing at the first one. And so, I mean, I kid you not, I'm a rewatcher of things anyways. Mm-hmm. And so I have seen every Ted Lasso episode at least 5 times. Yeah. Like, that is not an exaggeration. It annoys the fool out of Michelle because, like, if I'm, in the bedroom, like folding laundry on Sunday or something like that, I'll turn it on because I can like pick it up, watch 10 minutes, fold some laundry and stop. And that's fine. I still enjoy it the same. And so she'll come in and be like, are you watching Ted Lasso again? Yeah. Oh, yeah, I am.
So we're now into season 2. 4 episodes in to season 2.
4, and we get 12 this time.
And there's 12 this time. And as you and I, and if people want to hop in, when these are going on, usually there's some Twitter back and forth during Ted Lasso watches. We always know when each other watching it. So, absolutely. But like, we figured out because Brendan Hunt tweeted about this, that the first 3 episodes of this season were designed to be released all at once, the way they, I guess, did in the first season, which I wasn't paying attention at that time, so I didn't know. Right. And actually, now when you watch it, that makes sense, and see some arc within the 3 episodes.
It does
set aside. But now into episode 4, which was a little bit of a curveball with a Christmas episode in the middle of August. But how are you feeling about season 2 thus far?
I have loved it. I know. So, and I think I tweeted something to this extent. Episode 1 was great. Episode 2 was just a little different. Mm-hmm. Some of the characters are in different places this year, and it just seemed like a different episode. And I tweeted at the time, like, I thought it was the least great Ted Lasso episode there had been. And I think I said, like, the worst member of the 92 Dream Team. So I guess Christian Laettner.
Still pretty good ball player.
Yeah, exactly. And so then I went back and watched episode 2, and it was better than I thought it was on the first rewatch. And then with Brendan Hunt, Coach Beard tweeting out, hey, the first 3 are supposed to go together, it made a lot more sense. So
yeah. I'm
excited. I'm loving it. I can't wait to see where things go because I think we're going in a good, interesting direction. And there's just something every episode that, like, look, it's funny as hell. Like, it's a comedy. Yeah. But the thing that makes a difference, and the thing that Ted Lasso, I think, does better than anything that's on TV right now, and maybe anything that's been on TV in the last, I don't know, 5-10 years.
Yeah, it's a decade level talent of episode show, no doubt.
Yeah, it's not the humor, it's the heart. It's the message. And there's something in every episode that just cuts to it and is an actual life lesson that I need to apply. Yeah. And I'm not a soccer player in the championship in England or an owner of a soccer club or an American football coach pretending to be an English soccer manager. It's just good life stuff. And that's the thing that takes it from, hey, this is a really funny show, to this might be the best TV show I've ever watched.
Yeah. No, I mean, it is incredibly rare to be able to put together a show that is legitimately funny throughout every episode and throughout an entire season, and also have multiple places, sometimes within a single episode, but for sure multiple places throughout the season where, if you have any like level of emotional connection at all, like you're tearing up or whatever your version of getting of being moved emotionally is. Maybe it's crying, maybe it's just tearing up, maybe it's just whatever. Like that's happening multiple times. And it's not like, it's not, I'm trying to think of the right word, cliched, or it's not, I mean, it's not fake, it's real. I'm sure there are people that would watch maybe some sad episode of Friends or something and maybe get sad, but like it's different because it's still sort of like, come on, like it's Friends. Like it's not, and you obviously never get stuff emotional in like, I mean, like Seinfeld or 30 Rock or stuff that's like great comedy, just straight comedy. Like there's just none of that. And those are great shows, obviously. But to be able to put together comedy with that level of emotional connection and, it is just incredibly rare. It doesn't hardly ever happen. And I think it's a feat that they've accomplished. That's, I mean, I can't say enough about it. It's just not done. So.
Yeah. Well, and the thing that I think makes it such a next level and, once in a decade, maybe once in a longer time period than that show is, there are a lot of shows that have been on and are on, like This Is Us or Parenthood or some really great dramas that, are, I mean, we finally had to stop watching This Is Us just because it's like, man, I can't cry every episode
cry every night
for 45 minutes. Like it's just not good. But the things that Ted Lasso addresses, and I mean, I'm a movie crier, so I have cried in many a Ted Lasso episode. Yeah. But the way they address them, it's not preachy. It's not, hey, we're gonna make you cry, and we're trying to make you cry. It's like, hey, let's deal with this. Let's deal with this real life. Let's deal with, panic attacks. Let's deal with betrayal. Let's deal with, man, how do you apologize to somebody and how do you forgive somebody for deep, deep hurts?
Yeah.
How do you, there's just so many lessons that you can draw from it that have honestly blown me away. And I think like are a really good way that I've used personally just to interact with people of like, I've got people in my life who, really struggle with anxiety and are, panic attacks are a very present thing in their life. And, I'm saying, hey, I've never had a panic attack, but I've seen this portrayal. Have you seen that? Yeah. Is it like that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about that.
Mm-hmm.
When this is happening to you, how can I help?
Mm-hmm.
What do you need from me as your friend, as your brother, as your, somebody who cares about you? And so that's the thing that takes it from like, haha, funny soccer commercials. And they are funny soccer commercials. Like they're hilarious.
Yeah.
And, I would have watched the show and enjoyed the show if it was just that.
Yeah.
But it's tapped into something else entirely that makes it, it's why I won't shut up about it on Twitter or Facebook or whatever. So
no, the word that keeps coming to mind is the humanity of the show. Like it just really, I think, better than any other show there's a lot of stuff I have not seen that I'm sure does this well, especially on the dramatic side, but that where you just get this level of humanity and seeing people at their deepest core, and the interactions between them in those places of vulnerability, that when you've just come off like a hysterical joke, just that swing of back and forth, it's just, it's amazing. But I mean, and so even the most recent Christmas episode, I mean, I don't know what number of person it was that came into Higgins' door that I was starting to get emotional, like without.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
They just kept coming in and kept coming in. You could just tell how much it meant to him, like that they would want to come over to his house. I'm thinking about it, getting teary-eyed thinking about it now. And I've been in those
Absolutely.
places with sports teams and athletes when they're away from families and don't have anywhere to go and stuff like that. And so it just sits, true for me to see that. But yeah, it's awesome. So, well, Friday nights, tomorrow night.
Tomorrow night,
we'll release this Monday. So, or
okay.
on a Monday. Sorry. So we'll be ahead on this from a couple of weeks from people who are listening to this. So by the time people are listening to this, there may be a couple more episodes in. But if you haven't watched it yet, figure out a way to see it. Get Apple TV or find a friend that has Apple TV. Call one of us. We'll watch it through a sixth time. And with you.
No, absolutely. Like I was having a back and forth with somebody on Twitter who's like, well, I hear people saying good things about it, but I don't have Apple TV and I don't really want to pay for another streaming service, which I totally get.
Yeah.
Apple TV is like $7 a month. If you're on the fence because I don't have Apple TV, find me on Twitter. I will Venmo you $7 so you can watch Ted Lasso. It is worth it to me to pay you $7 to watch Ted Lasso.
All right. We'll start a little Venmo Ted Lasso fund for the folks that need help for 1 month. We'll pay 1 month of it so you can watch it, and that'd be awesome.
Exactly.
All right, so let's wrap up this episode. That was fun. I need to do that more often because that's fun to talk through at the end of these episodes. Okay, rapid fire questions to finish up, if you're ready. All right.
Yes.
Name one trait or characteristic that you most want to see in an associate.
Well, willingness. If you're willing to work, if you're willing to learn, I can work with you.
All right. What habit has been key to your success?
Get up early. I don't get up as early as my wife does, but I mean, I still get up generally when the clock has a 5 on it in front of it, and you can get more done personally, professionally. Ben Franklin was right: early to bed, early to rise.
That's right. And by the way, Andrew's been very modest throughout this conversation about his wife and his former firm. And we're going to link to those in the show notes. And you can just go check them out. We'll let you find it out for yourself, the level of success that we've had here. Your favorite app or productivity tool?
This is bad because I don't really have a favorite productivity tool or app. I would probably say Twitter, but that's like negative productivity.
That's right. Yeah.
But that's certainly probably the app that I use the most.
Yeah, sure. All right. What would you list first in the interest section of your resume?
I'm a pilot.
That's cool.
I love planes and aviation, and I don't shut up about them. So that's what goes first. And it's a very like obnoxious pilot trait to be like, hey, I'm a pilot.
That's awesome.
But it's cool.
Hey, and if you're a pilot out there, I would probably put that first on any interest section on a resume. That's going to get someone's attention when they're reviewing resumes for sure. All right. Lastly, your favorite legal movie.
This is bad as well because I know you have a podcast where you discuss legal movies.
Yes.
I do not watch legal movies, and I hate to watch legal movies. So I guess maybe like, maybe Legally Blonde is the one I've seen the most because Michelle loves it.
Sure.
And I think it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But I don't read Grisham books, and I don't generally watch legal movies.
Yeah, it's funny. Legally Blonde, I would say, I did this once. It's been probably 6 months ago, but when I did it at the time, I think Legally Blonde was probably the third most mentioned movie at that for that question. So it's definitely up there among the favorites. So nothing to be ashamed of with that one at all.
Yeah, it's a classic.
No, for sure. So awesome. All right, Andrew, thanks so much for taking the time to come on the show. It's been fun. And looking forward to some more Ted Lassos this year. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I will be back to talk Ted Lasso anytime you'll have me.
Yeah, we'll do just this Ted Lasso show completely with none of the rest of the heavy lifting another time. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Sign me up.
All right, my thanks again to Andrew Tuegel for joining us on the show today. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider doing two things for me? Would you subscribe so you don't miss an episode? And then would you rate and review the podcast in Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen? And I'm going to add a third thing, because normally I just ask you for two things. I'll ask you for a third thing. So you can pick one of these. Don't do them all, but a third one. Tell a friend about the show and let them know how they can find it. Would love for you to do that. Also, don't forget, if you're interested in any of the opportunities that I mentioned earlier, you just want to visit about the market or what opportunities might be out there for you, please get in touch with me, Daniel, at varsitysearch.com. We'll be happy to visit with you. All right, that's it for today's episode of Lone Star Lawyers. Thanks again so much to each of you for listening. I'm Daniel here with Varsity Search, and we'll talk with you next time.